More bad news for the coup plotters inside of Venezuela. It has been determined by the UN that they are not going to recognize the illegitimate leadership of Juan Guaido, and then instead they are going to recognize the leadership of Nicolas Maduro, the actually elected president, and that in dealing with anything that has to do with Venezuela or its ongoing crisis, they will be dealing directly with Nicolas Maduro himself. Stéphane Dujarric, a spokesman for Antonio Guterres, who is the United Nations Secretary General, conveyed that the Secretary General's reply to the aid request in a public briefing on Thursday.
He said the United Nations is ready to increase its activities in Venezuela in the areas of humanitarian assistance and development. However, he said that for this, the United Nations needs the consent and the cooperation of the government.
Now, last week, Guaido published a letter sent to Guterres requesting UN humanitarian intervention inside of Venezuela. Of course, what he means by this is something to reinforce his position as the self-proclaimed leader of the country. Now, the move by Guaido has sparked a political crisis in the country, especially after it was recognized by the United States, Canada, and other shills of imperialism or imperialist cores themselves. Now, this included a subsidiary. This is also bound up with the fact that the United States has essentially frozen the assets of the state oil company inside of the United States. Now, any profits that are generated by the Venezuelan state oil company inside the United States go into an escrow account, which is only accessible by Juan Guaido, who is the illegitimate leader of Venezuela. So essentially, the United States is literally stealing money from Venezuela and giving it to a guy who just declared himself to be president. If this isn't a violation of international law, then what is? And of course, as usual, the UN, being the completely useless body that it is not going to do anything about what the United States is doing because it doesn't have any muscle to carry it out whatsoever. Because the United States is too busy not only just being an empire, but threatening the world with invasion and nuclear war if it doesn't get what it wants. It leaves the Iran nuclear agreement. It's saying to hell with the INF treaty with Russia. Trump has already said that he wants to completely update the entire nuclear arsenal of the United States. He's picking a fight with every other country in the world, including China, the world's second largest economy. It's very clear here that the United States is desperately lashing out at the entire world and doing whatever it wants to maintain its hegemonic position. And meanwhile, we have the UN, which is supposed to be a body that will resolve disputes between the member nations, being essentially useless. Now, we all heard the saying, might makes right. Or that might does not make right. But as Che Guevara said, might makes victory. You can look at the history of Latin America as an example. Look at the Incans, the Mayans. They had forms of government, aqueducts, of forms of government and agriculture that were ahead of everybody else. Even rudimentary brain surgery. But the Spanish had gunpowder. Look at every country that's under oppression by the United States. Venezuela, Iran, Libya, Syria, Yemen, through Saudi Arabia. But who's the one that's able to fight back? Who's the one that forces the U.S. to come to the table and negotiate? That would be the DPRK. Because it's the DPRK that has nuclear weapons. I mean, if this doesn't prove definitively that if you ever want any kind of independence, you will need a nuclear arsenal. Because that's the only thing the United States listen to. Everybody bemoans over and over about the proliferation of nuclear weapons. They bemoan countries who, look at when North Korea announced they had one, and first world has lost their minds over it. Oh, I can't believe North Korea has nukes. They should come to the table and get rid of it. Because they're afraid they're going to get hit. Because they know their country, the United States, or other such imperialist powers, will be the ones that push that kind of war. But this proves once and for all that, might doesn't make right. It makes victory. And you can have every benefit in the world you want. You can be as completely altruistic and as much of a goddamn utopian as you want. If you cannot defend it, it's not worth shit. Because you will not be able to hold on to it. Sorry for that tangent. Sorry for that little bit of rant. But I think it's something that definitely needs to be said. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.